Hello, my name's Emma Varnum and I'm a crochet designer and author, and I'm just really grateful that you've joined me on this channel, and on this space I share hints and tips about things I've made, and some just enthusiastic about if I'm making something at the moment, and I point you to places where I've got inspiration and think about the work that I'm doing in the background. So today though is a bit of a mixed craft post because, and you're slightly further away so that I can show you a few things. So in the last few months I have been making things for our son, who is 18 and will be hopefully, going on to college, and almost like a woolly hug. I've been making him some blankets. Now, obviously, crochet is my wheelhouse. That's what I do, and probably he could choose from any crochet blanket he wanted. But I decided I would make him a version. This is not my pattern. The pattern is Safe at Home, and you can find it on Ravelry. And I have made it slight. I wanted to use up my stash, and you'll see in the playlist that this is part of my stash heap challenge this summer, going through the yarn that I have in my stash and trying to use it up in a beautiful but definitely useful way. I have lots of Aran Stylecraft special Aran that I have used for my up and coming book, and vintage granny squares, and I use some Aran in those projects. Don't always use Aran for crochet because it's quite a chunky knit, a chunky material, so frequently you will use a DK because that makes sense. Anyway, it's quite fun to use different weights of yarn. I've made some projects in that book using Aran, and I've been using up that Aran in using this blanket. So just to share with you, this is now 6 terraces deep, and I'll just stand up out of shot, I realise, but there you go. Quite bright and lots of fun. I think I'm going to back it. I'm going to have to do a backing for it because you know and I know that if you're knitting, crochet tends to be like double-sided. There's no sort of wrong side, right side. There's a right side, and often if you're not a crocheter, you can't work out. I mean, sometimes I've done a design and it's been published, and the photograph they've taken is on the wrong side, which is fine because that's great, because obviously no one can tell. But actually, if you're a crocheter, you will know that's the wrong side. So we always have to kind of go, oh, I've got to turn it around. Anyway, that's not so much with knitting. This is a lot of sewing in ends. It is a labour of love. And I think, if I'm honest with you, I will be putting a kind of fabric background on it so that it doesn't get pulled. You don't have to do that, but I think I'm going to do it for safeguarding. So there you go. I have been making that. I'm on currently Terrace 7. I'm doing the sky for the little houses at the moment. And I quite enjoy doing this sort of stripe in between. It's kind of really relaxing. So I'm enjoying it, and it's really good fun. And I'm using up lots of the stash. Let's just count 1, 2. Yeah, so I've done 6. And it's going to be sort of like a large drop something here. A large single bed shape. I think 8 is going to be good, and it certainly will use up all the stash. However, I wanted to share with you another project, and it's been such a fast project such a, I can't almost connect how I became so excited about it. Well, I can in some ways. So in the last year, just over a year, maybe 2 years, I've been really inspired by quilt block patterns. So this one is inspired by a quilt block pattern I saw, and it's based on the bear's paw pattern, and it's in crochet, and I've really enjoyed making this kind of inspired by the pattern and using crochet block. I loved it, and it's been a real kind of reservoir, a real inspiration for what I've been making. And almost out of respect for quilting, I felt like I needed to understand a bit more about quilting and quilting traditions, and I came across a number of YouTube channels which are brilliant, particularly The Last Homely House, and I really started to enjoy her videos. I'm very late to the party. I'm really late. I can completely appreciate that, and Kate is really inspirational. And I saw a pattern. She's coincidentally making a crochet blanket, which is obviously my wheelhouse, but I saw that she was making a really simple quilt using block Indian fabrics, block printed fabrics, and I love them, and they've really taken me back to when I was really much younger and block prints were really fashionable. And the last few years, Molly Mahon and other people like that have really, the fashion has turned around again to block printing, which I love. And I've been to India myself and seen it, and it's really amazing skill. So I decided I would pick up some block printed fabrics, and I'll put a link in to the shop where I got those. The softness of this, it's almost like a Tana lawn, very, very, very densely weaved, very smooth, and it was gorgeous. And anyway, so I got some of these fabrics, and then suddenly I felt like I'd really like to have a go. I had done patchwork in my younger years. There is a curtain upstairs in our spare room which is patchwork, and I did that probably 16 years ago. I made that, and it's still there, and it still looks great, and I incorporated scrap fabrics that I'd got, and I cut up some like pajamas that I had worn, and that's still there. So I thought, I'm making my son this, and wouldn't it be nice to make him a patchwork quilt? And I just I realised that essentially when I was expecting him, I knitted a lot of things, and that's called nesting, isn't it? And lots of people do that. They either try and prepare some space in the house for a cot, or they make some little booties, and I really enjoyed preparing all of that, and I made him a beautiful knitted blanket, which we've still got, and I could get it out, but it's very much about that size, and we didn't know if he was going to be a boy or a girl, and it was just it was in red, and I loved it, and he had it when he was little. So that was nesting, and I think what I'm doing is de-nesting. I'm sort of making things for him as he's flying the nest. So maybe this is a flying the nest blanket. And I don't know, is this a concept? Has anybody else had this? It feels a bit like our cat with scent marking. I don't know. So I've made him a flying the nest blanket, and I then have made him a quilt. So this is, I think de-nesting sounds quite negative. I think flying the nest is a good phrase. So this is his flying the nest quilt. So I've made a tie, I've folded it up, tried to fold it up like proper quilters do. And I made a tie for it, and I got hold of these different block printed fabrics via Etsy, and I laid it out on the floor and asked him to look at it as well. This is from a shirt that he had for an expedition he's been on, and in the 2 weeks he was on it, it disintegrated essentially with hardware, so he was a bit upset about it because it got holes in it, and so I said, well, shall I incorporate it? So it's quite funny because it sort of stands out in the pattern as something quite different, but I like that because that's very personal to him. This is quite flowery, you could say, not very masculine, but it's really striking, and it's blue, and I'm hoping he'll like it a lot. He has seen it being made, but I've not kind of presented it to him. So I got out, I'd been on a patchwork course because I thought I really need to understand quilting. I really need to get to understand it properly. And there's lots of techniques. So I went on a course with a brilliant woman, which I'll put another link to her Instagram in this video. And she was so brilliant. And then I also went to Festival of Quilts with a friend, and I got a quilting walking foot because I realised, having just it through crochet, that actually getting the right tools mean that you don't waste other expensive, batting and material. I wanted to do it right. I'm so glad I got a walking foot. They're not cheap, and I've got a nice sewing machine. It's very basic, but getting the right tools and that really helps. So I cut out all of the squares and sewed them all together. They're not perfect at all. I am quite particular about crochet, but with my sewing I'm not that perfectionist. I did bought a sheet actually, because I wanted it quite like a large single bed quilt. I've got a sheet to back it, I'll show you. And then I've quilted it along the lines of the squares, vertical and horizontal. And then I did a diagonal, and I thought that would go quite badly due to my lack of accuracy. So this is the first one I've done first patchwork, serious patchwork I've done. So I'll just show you. It's quite hard to see. But it's a large, I'm unfolding it now. And I did a scrappy edge as well, which I was pleased about. So I sewed together 2 2.25 inch strips, and then sewed them together, and then did a mitered edge. So on the other side you can see how the quilting has worked out, and I think I'm really pleased that it doesn't look that bad, to be fair. So see what you think. But all the bright colours, and I have also, looking at quilts, I see that it's a really nice idea, and I really like this idea because you can sort of do it with crochet, but it doesn't really work out. But I've made a quilt label and a Stanley on it, so I've put it here on the corner, and this is a sort of thing I often draw for Benjamin with Stanley, so I embroidered that for him in the corner. So there you go. However, when I started making this is what is hilarious. I had totally forgotten that here is Benjamin's Fly in the Nest quilt, which he can take with him or not. Let's be honest, some of this is about Mummy. This is about making for preparing for him to go, and it's about the soothing the soothing activity of making for someone who you love, and if making is one of your love languages, then yeah, you'll definitely understand what I mean. However, I had totally forgotten, and I mean this, I'd totally forgotten this. I had made another nearly 35 years ago. I had made this, which I've just got out. This is the patchwork duvet cover I made as my own Flying the Nest quilt patchwork duvet cover. So when I went to university, rock and roll, I am aware, I made this in preparation, and it was on my bed in halls for the first year. I think I was there on every bed that I had at university, yeah. If you're a woman or a man of a certain age, you are going to recognise some of these patterns. You're going to recognise that the majority of this material is Laura Ashley, vintage Laura Ashley. I really liked yellow at that age, and I think it was really funny because it sort of, then I didn't really go for it. Maybe yellow fell out of fashion, and yellow was really in fashion in the end of the 80s into the 90s. Yeah, so these patterns you'll really recognise. And what is hilarious is there, just as this sort of kind of off-piste personal fabric that, you know, this is the back of the shirt, and I really tried to pick up some of these details in the quilt for Benjamin. One of my friends, who's my friend at school, went to Africa that summer before and brought me back this wax block printed fabric from Africa, and as a sort of memory of her, I incorporated this material into my patchwork duvet cover. And I love it because it's faded, and I can see where it's faded. I was obviously very inventive. I've obviously made it too large, and then I sort of pushed it round the edge to make the duvet cover size. What is fascinating is that I made poppers for it, which some of them fell off. And obviously my sewing machine at that time didn't have a really good buttonhole maker. My sewing machine now does. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all these poppers, and I'm going to put some buttonholes on here. And you never know, because I might bring this duvet cover back into action. It's been in storage for a really long time, and I've only dragged it out now because I had this memory of oh my word, this is what I did. This is what I did in preparation to go away, and this is what I'm doing for our son. So I thought I'd share that with you. It's not crochet. There's a bit of yarn-based work. We're not always just one craft, are we? I think often you find crafters are lots of different crafts. So I thought I would share it with you. I continue. I'm on number 7 of this. So if you're doing a stash heap challenge, I hope your stash heap challenge is going well. I think I'm going to get it done in time. I'm hopeful anyway. I'm going to crack on with it later on. I've got to do skies today. But I'm hopeful I'm going to get it done. We are slightly up against it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a Flying the Nest project.